Hey everybody, welcome to another Thursday night Four Horsemen video, but we have a horseman who's never been a horseman before. He's new to our program. We've been doing these Thursday night videos for the longest time, and tonight we're going to be talking about the Van Hagar era of Van Halen, but not just the Van Hagar era. We're going to be talking about the post David Lee Roth split from Van Halen, and also talking about our favorite David Lee Roth solo songs. And so I brought Tim Durling on. He's been on my channel before. We just did the video about his Y&T book. Tim is a huge Van Halen fan. And so I thought, let's bring Tim on. Tim as one of the most knowledgeable music fans that I know. And like I say, a huge, big Van Halen guy. So welcome, Tim, to our discussion. And we got Josh,
hey guys,
of course.
thanks for making me part of this. This is awesome. Incidentally, Van Halen comes up a lot in my Y&T book.
Okay, so that's check out my Y&T if you're interested. You're like, what Y&T book? Check out my Y&T video. I'm going to be posting it probably later tonight. But we also have Aaron Mutha-Alamer, another contributor to the Y&T book, and also another Van Halen expert. So did you guys all get the box set, the Van Hagar box set?
Or Sam Halen?
The Sam Halen.
Sam Halen
I got the CD version.
Absolutely.
Okay. With the crooked logo.
Oh man, is that by design, or did they just screw it up?
I don't know, and I don't think our good friend Matt Phillips, you know Matt, Jeff, we've all been on each other's shows and stuff, and he's the one that noticed that because he's a designer, and he goes, the logo's crooked, and I'm like, okay, but now I can't help but notice it.
Yeah, well, maybe it's rare now.
The only thing I wish with the box set was that they had done something similar with the David Lee Roth years, where the Van Hagar had the oddities disc, because I don't own like Me Wise Magic and the tracks from the greatest hits, or we don't have any outtakes from the Dave years, so it would have been cool if they had done something similar. But I love the box set. I think it was well worth.
You know what I wish they would have done is I wish they would have put the Live Without a Net concert on audio, thrown that on a disc, and put that as part of the box set. Yeah, because that would have been something different. But
yeah, it is. I'm
surprised. I'm just glad they did anything, because the Van Halen camp, because that's the first thing that's come out since that Tokyo Dome concert.
Yeah.
In 2015. So when that came out, I'm like, well, I almost got to buy it just by default because it's new Van Halen product.
Yeah.
So,
I actually like the Tokyo Dome a lot too, and I like that they put the lyrics in there. I've talked about that before, where in the original Van Halen albums, they didn't have the lyrics in there unless you got like the Japanese version. And the Dome has the lyrics to all those old songs. Even with the talking, it's kind of weird they put the lyrics for like Dave's talking along in the lyrics.
Yeah. Look at all the people here tonight.
Yeah.
Now I know Aaron and I are solidly in the David Lee Roth, Van Halen era. That's our favorite era. And I think, Tim, you've made the point before. It's what you grew up with. It's your first introduction to the band. That's the music that you're always going to, in general, prefer.
Right.
So I grew up. Yeah, so I grew up. Diver Down was the first Van Halen cassette that I ever owned. And so I love the David Lee Roth era. Aaron, I know you said as much on other Van Halen videos that we've done. Tim, I know you're a Van Hagar guy or a Sam Halen guy. I know that's because that's when you got into the band. Yeah. But Josh, I don't know if you've ever gone on record as taking a side. Are you a Van Hagar or a Van Halen guy?
All right. So if I had to choose, I would choose David Lee Roth. But that being said, there are times when I'm in the mood for Van Hagar, it's a completely different mood than Van Halen. So they generally don't. It's not the same day for me.
It took me a long time to come to the conclusion that they really were two different bands with the same name.
Yeah,
like two completely different bands, both good bands, but different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it always felt, being around at the time when Van Halen still had David Lee Roth as part of the band, it kind of felt like Sammy Hagar was like the stepdad coming in. Like, yeah, you know, I
Yeah.
like it. It's just not the same. He's not as cool as my real dad, David Lee Roth, you know, and it's I think that's part of it. But I like as much as I know I said fuck Sammy Hagar in one of these videos when I had too much to drink, and so I'm not gonna sit here and try to act like I didn't, but I do like Van Hagar. I love 5150. 5150 is one of my favorite Van Halen albums. You know, I'm warming up to OU 812. That's always kind of been my least favorite Van Hagar album. You know, I love the FUCK album, kind of on the fence about balance. But nonetheless, I'm going to be very fair to Sammy Hagar. I've warmed this, been, I think, a little more open to Sammy Hagar than I have been just in listening more to the music and giving those CDs, those albums, another chance. But, we're going to have fun with it. Aaron, before you came in, I had said, and I think it was probably off camera as well, what we're going to do is we're going to start each giving our number 5 pick, your number 5 Van Hagar song and your number 5 David Lee Roth song. And then you're going to tell us which song do you prefer, which one do you like better. So just be prepared for that. We'll start off with our number 5 pick. What's your number 5 Van Hagar pick, your number 5 David Lee Roth solo pick, and then what's your favorite out of the two? Everybody all right with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I can't wait to see the variety of songs we come up with. This should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, me too. In fact, I left my list over across the room, but while I go and grab it, the way we'll go in order is the way that is clockwise on my screen, and that's Aaron, Tim, Josh, and then I'll go last. So Aaron, why don't you go with your number 5 pick while I grab my list?
Okay, before I start, I'd like to just talk about the Van Halen and David Lee Roth a little bit. To me, like you said, I'm a bigger Van Halen fan of the original, but I do like the Sammy Hagar. I was a huge Sammy Hagar fan too before he joined Van Halen, and it was just so weird how he changed so much with Van Halen to me, from his stuff that was a little more raw, even stuff like Three Lock Box. I love that, and I love all of this. I have every one of his solo albums from before Van Halen, a few after, and I was gonna say it's almost like a racehorse. So Van Halen with David Lee Roth was the racehorse, the stud racehorse, and that's and then when they got Sammy Hagar joined, it's almost like they were gelded, and then it became safe for parents. I mean, for the older and the kids and the adults, the older people, to ride the horse, if that makes any sense at all. Where they lost their rawness and their fire, kind of, to me. But I do like them both. So am I starting with the Van Halen or the David Lee Roth? As the first?
Let's start with Van Hagar, and then you
Then
do both. Do Van
Yeah.
Hagar, then what's your David Lee Roth? Yeah.
So I made a list of. I actually have 10, and I have 30 David Lee Roth. And the 30 David Lee Roth, I'll just say, I like better than the 10 Van Halen. That's just me. I'm a huge David Lee Roth solo guy. So my number 5 is from this record here. And actually, this is actually my favorite of the Sam Halen Van Hagar records, OU 812. I don't know why, I just always loved this album a lot. But my number 5 is Finish What You Started. It was a single, but I just love that song. I just love the guitar work in it, and it just has a really good summertime feel to it, which I've always liked. And surprisingly, that made my list, because I usually gravitate towards the deep cuts. But Finish What You Started is my number 5 for Van Halen. And for David Lee Roth, my number 5 is the title song from this lesser known record, Your Filthy Little Mouth. And
you got that on vinyl. That's cool.
Yeah, I love this album. I bought this on cassette right when it came out, and I was obsessed with this record. It's got so many different textures and sounds. I mean, he's got like reggae stuff. He's got like a country song with Travis Tritt on here. He's got the typical David Lee Roth stuff. And Terry Kilgore plays guitar on this, who actually was you know, with Van Halen, they were kind of rivals with Eddie Van Halen when they were first starting out. And he actually kind of taught Eddie Van Halen the finger tapping. It was Terry Kilgore who taught him, well, not taught him, but kind of showed him the technique. And then Eddie Van Halen ran with it and made it his own. But the song, Your Filthy Little Mouth, one of my favorite songs from this, probably is my favorite because it's the one that made the list. But I love every song on this. Great album, underrated record. And that's my number 5. And I obviously like that better than Finish What You Started, because that's the thing, David Lee Roth, he still kept that edge, and he didn't lose the musicianship, because he had, you know, first he had Steve Vai, then Jason Becker, and then Terry Kilgore and John Five, all these guys playing with him, all amazing musicians. Billy Sheehan on bass, the Bissonette brothers. But yeah, that's my number 5.
Kind of like Ozzy Osbourne. You know, Ozzy Osbourne surrounded himself with some great guitarists, and so you never felt like, well, it's not quite as good as Black Sabbath. You know, kind of the same thing with David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim.
Okay, so for mine, and it's funny, full disclosure, Jeff like literally asked me like hours before. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. So I'm like, oh, I know I gotta make a list. So my first Van Halen song is, I've come to find out, I just happened to be picked this up when it first came out. This is one of the most expensive records I own, because this is an original 1995 copy of Balance. And it's not a deep cut because it was a single in the video, but I'm going, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. I remember when that first came out, I'm like, wow, they've heavied up even more. And it's such a dark, angry song, but yet melodic. And I love Eddie's playing throughout, and it's just got such a unique feel to it. It's different for them. There's, you know, they didn't usually get angry, but it still sounds like Van Halen. And so that's why I picked that one.
Wasn't that the song that David, like, there was that animosity between Sammy and Eddie because Eddie wanted Sammy to change the lyric on that song?
I think that was Humans Being.
Was it?
I think so, because that was the last thing they recorded in the studio together before they split, I think. Yeah. So for my Dave song, now this album gets a lot of crap, but I've always liked it. In the summer of '88, I listened to this cassette all the time. So from the Skyscraper record, I'm going to go with The Bottom Line. It's a fast shuffle. I mean, I'm a big Steve Vai fan, and Steve's all over this song. It's actually got, like, there's not a lot of Billy Sheehan. You don't hear a lot of Billy Sheehan on this album, and that's why he would leave and form Mr. Big. But this one's actually got some, it's got some bass on it. Actually, some of it's backwards, but I've always loved The Bottom Line. But my vote is going to go with Van Halen, but they're both good songs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like both those tracks. Excellent. All right. So my number 5 for Van Halen is a very obscure song, and that is Crossing Over. Crossing Over was a B-side, and it was an extra track on the Japanese release of Balance. And it's about the death of their manager, the longtime Van Halen manager. They never wanted to release that song, but they were contractually obligated to have an extra track for the Japanese CD. And Eddie wrote that. I think Eddie plays all the instruments on it. And Sammy ended up writing lyrics for it. It's a really powerful song. And I think ever since Eddie's death, it just hits me even harder. And I find myself really loving that song. My number 5 for David Lee Roth is going to be Yankee Rose. I think this is a masterpiece, and it probably should be my number 1 David Lee Roth song, but I've just heard it so many times in my life. But if someone played me all the David Lee Roth songs for the first time, I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking this was his best song. It is absolutely incredible. It reminds me of being 12 years old and hearing it in backyard cookouts and walking to the park holding some chick's hand that I don't even remember her name. You know what I mean? Like, it reminds me of all those emotions. What song do I like better? I'm going to say Yankee Rose. I like better, but it doesn't diminish the fact that I love that song. So
Great choices.
All right. My number 5 Van Hagar song is going to be off the Balance album, Aftershock. And I love Eddie's melodic guitar lines on that song. I'm a sucker when Eddie Van Halen goes all melodic with the guitar. I mean, I'm totally sucked in. And I feel like that is Eddie at his best. I love that particular song. Reminds me a little bit of the classic Van Halen, like kind of Diver Downish. You know, some stuff from 5150. So I absolutely love that one. And then this one, kind of a little like, people are going to give you shit for this one, but I don't care. My number 5 pick is going to be off the EP. It's going to be Coconut Grove. I love
Nice.
Coconut Grove. It's like
Yes.
so chill. It's so mellow. I can't say I care for much else off the EP. I mean, I'll listen to it, but you know, California Girls, it's never going to replace the Beach Boys hit for me. Just a Gigolo, you know, it's kind of got that just retro big band, you know, whatever, kind of that jump blues fit, whatever he was going for. I don't know what style of music you'd call it. It's that Louis Prima cover that he did. And then Easy Street is all right. The others just kind of seem more, I don't know, a little too goofy. Whereas Coconut Grove, I love how it closes out the EP. Always love that. And that's my number 5 pick. But I am going to pick Aftershock over Coconut Grove, even though I do like Coconut Grove a lot. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I love both those songs. Coconut Grove is fantastic.
That's definitely my favorite from the EP. But I actually liked his California Girls and Just a Gigolo. I like them all.
Yeah, I don't dislike any of them.
Yeah, I don't hate them, but it's just, if I'm going to listen to David Lee Roth, it's probably not going to be the EP.
Yeah. Okay, my number 4 Van Halen, the title track, 5150. Love that song. And I've noticed this when I was listening back to this. The thing that's, I love this record, but the drums really date it. It's the electric drum sound that he has kind of on there. Yeah. Really weird sounding to me. That's why I can't get past it a little. That's why I don't like it as much. I think it's the, you know, I prefer the St. Anger drum sound to this because it was unique. This one kind of sounds, you can tell it's right in the mid 80s. Just, it's really weird to me, but I love the song 5150. And this is a great album. I mean, all the Van Halen albums are great, but 5150, my choice at number 4. And for David Lee Roth, my number 4 song is 40 Below, the first song on the second side of your Little Ain't Enough. This is actually my favorite David Lee Roth record, and I love 40 Below. Just the lyrics just crack me up, and it's just a really driving song. And this album to me sounds like a old Van Halen record. A lot of it does. Some of it doesn't, but a lot of it has that old Van Halen feel to me. So I'm definitely going with 40 Below as my number 4, and the one I like the better. The one I like more.
Nice.
It's so cool you got both of those on vinyl. I gotta catch up. I'm behind there. Not once
Yeah, Aaron's collection is godlike. It's
Yeah.
we all bow down to it.
Yeah.
He's probably got a Japanese version with the obi strip.
Yeah, really. Now, where is okay? For some, oh no, here I got it. This is live, folks, before your naked, steaming little eyes, as Dave would say. So my Van Halen, I thought I'd dig into this a little bit. The recent box set from OU812. The song, it started off innocently enough, but it ended up being an empire for Sammy. That would be Cabo Wabo. So I have a soft spot for OU812 because when I got started buying albums in earnest, OU812 was the first Van Halen album I bought new.
Nice.
Because I heard Black and Blue on the radio, and that's how I knew they had an album out. I bought the cassette. So yeah, that's my choice for Van Halen song Cabo Wabo. For Dave, I'm going to go to Eat 'em and Smile. And like Yankee Rose, you can't argue with Yankee Rose. It's an all-time classic, right? But I always really liked Going Crazy, the second single, which wasn't as big a hit, but it's just as catchy. I love the video. The video's hilarious. You know, Steve Vai, great. And I always look that flame guitar that he had with the real high cutaway. And but yeah, it's a really catchy melodic song. But what's really, really funny to me is if you read the liner notes of Eat 'Em and Smile, the keyboards are by Jesse Harms, who was fresh from Sammy's solo band, like his VOA band. And here he is all over Dave's album. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, those are my two choices. Got to go with Cabo Wabo, but they're both great.
My son Landon, Going Crazy is his favorite David Lee Roth song. I subject my kids to Van Halen, David Lee Roth, and Van Hagar all the time, and he loves that song. It's on his mix when I drive.
I get such a kick. I got drunk and fell into the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's funny.
My son loves the going coconuts, but at least I'm going my way.
Yeah, the cowbell stuff in it. And
and it's the EP right in the chorus.
Yeah.
Going crazy from the.
Yeah, exactly. And I wondered if that song was meant to be on that EP. You know what I mean? Like if Going Crazy.
Did you guys ever read Dave's book, Crazy from the Heat?
No, I want to though.
Wow. I picked it up probably late 90s. It came out in 97, same time as Best Of came out. It's a good book if you can stick with it. He's all over the place. But he wanted to do a movie called Crazy from the Heat, and the songs from Eat 'Em and Smile were going to serve as the soundtrack. At least that's my understanding. But the movie studio went out of business.
Yeah. I think I remember stuff about that back then.
And I mean, I'm really surprised because Dave's such a personality. Let's talk about classic Dave, okay? Let's not talk about Dave today. But I'm really surprised he didn't get into film because I know he did a little bit of acting, like he was on The Sopranos, but I'm really surprised he didn't break it because it seems to me he would have been a natural in comedies.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny if you read the book from their former manager, it's that Running with the Devil book. And David Lee Roth, unbeknownst to the rest of Van Halen, had recorded that solo EP. And he talks about they're on a plane and David Lee Roth has a Walkman and he goes over and he sits next to Eddie and he's like, Eddie, here, you got to listen to this. And Eddie puts the headphones on and Dave presses play and California Girls comes on the Walkman. And Dave's all expecting Eddie to be excited and like, oh, this is great, Dave. And Eddie's just totally like stone-faced, like, what the fuck is this? And, you know. Like,
well, yeah, because it's not like he just threw it together, right? Like he had it's professionally recorded, 10 Templeman. He's got, Carl Wilson singing, background vocals, Christopher Cross. I mean, money was spent, right? He had no intention of just doing this and not releasing it.
Yeah, and then Eddie's sort of like seeing the band's life flashing before his eyes, like, oh geez, I can see where this is going. And then Dave's like, no, wait, Van Halen can do the soundtrack for the movie I'm going to be in, and it was like too late, it was like already, it was not going to end well for that era of the band.
When you think about what those guys were, it's really amazing they lasted as long as they did.
Oh yeah, yeah, all those egos, and then the way he treated Michael Anthony is just.
I've never read the book, but that's what I've been told. Like they just did him dirty time after time.
Yeah.
They were. Oh God. Yeah, well, he was such a nice guy, and he was such a gentle soul, and they used that against him. Like they really treated him like garbage, unfortunately. And after the 1984 album came out, they made him sign a document saying that he was no longer entitled to any royalties or any money from that album, which was real a shitty thing to do. And it was the three of them. They all ganged up on him and they made him feel like, less than his one, fourth part of the band.
I didn't realize that went all the way back there, like that long, but and yet his background vocals are such a vital part of Van Halen, no matter what lineup it is. And I, all respect to Wolfie, and I actually like the A Different Kind of Truth album. You miss those Michael Anthony harmonies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, my next pick is not one of your favorite songs, but I love it. And it's Dreams. I love Dreams. I've always loved Dreams. It's just one of my favorites. It puts me in a good mood. I'm always smiling. I know that some people think it's kind of cheesy, but to me, it's awesome. And then Aaron, if you would hold up your filthy little mouth, there is a song on there that I don't own that on any physical form. So I'm looking for the cassette. But I like the song Land's Edge, where it's about all these different broads that he dates, and they keep either breaking up with them, or he's breaking up with them, or they're breaking up with him. And it's actually explicit. It's one of those rare songs that David Lee Roth drops a couple F-bombs, but the song is just so hysterical in terms of, his relationships, ups and downs. And I recommend anybody reading that lyrics. It is an awesome song. That being said, it's very difficult to choose between these two songs. I give the slight edge to Dreams just because of the nostalgia of being a child, but I love both of them equally. But yeah, I love that song.
I don't hate Dreams, but at the same time, nothing underscores the difference between those two bands and a song like Dreams. Like, could you ever imagine David Lee Roth singing a lyric, "That's what dreams are made of"?
No.
I mean, like, all the danger, all the badass went out the window when Sammy sang those lyrics. Like, oh, this is like a Hallmark version of Van Halen now, but like, I still like 5150, but it's just like you said, Tim, it's a different band. It's not the
Totally
same
different
band,
Although I always take exception to the whole keyboards thing. That's not Sammy, because listen to "I'll Wait."
That's not Sammy at all. I mean,
Eddie.
Eddie was doing that all the way back to
more.
Diver Down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, back to Women and Children First with.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like keyboards, but it's like a Wurlitzer, like crank. Da, 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 da. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, my next pick is, and I've warmed to it. I say it's my least favorite Van Hagar album, but one album has to be your least favorite. It doesn't mean you don't like it. It doesn't mean you don't respect it. But for me, I'm going with Black and Blue off of OU812. I love that song. That song kicks so much ass. I love it. It's got so much attitude in that song. And it's just a very different sounding kind of Van Halen, but I love it. Every time it comes on, I got to crank it up. Love Black and Blue. And then for me, I got to go with another cover, Tobacco Road, off of here. They just do such, or I should say, David Lee Roth and the band do such a great job with that song. I love it. It was between that or Yankee Rose. And I love Yankee Rose, but I'm like, that's too obvious. So I wanted to go with Tobacco Road because it starts off side 2 and it's such a high energy, just a really fun cover of that song. I forget who did the original now.
Nashville Teens.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a cover then when I first heard Dave's version.
Yeah, it's like one of those cover songs where he makes it his own. It's no longer a Nashville Teens song. It's David
weird.
Lee Roth
I
song.
remember I played it, and I didn't normally do this because my parents hated the music I liked, but I had it playing the car. My mother was singing. I'm like, "You know this song?" She's like, "Oh, it's from the 60s." I'm like, this isn't. But that's when I knew it was a cover.
Yeah, that's like when I first realized George Harrison's "Got My Mind Set on You" was not an original George Harrison composition.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That song's from the 50s. What?
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, Aaron, you're what are we, number 3 now?
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite versions of Tobacco Road was Eric Burdon Declares War on that record. It's a really good version of it on that.
I don't think I've heard that.
My number 3, I'm going with Tim here. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do from Balance. My number 3. That song, when I first heard, it's like, oh my God, Van Halen's heavy again. And then he goes into the chorus and it's back to the Van Hagar sound. But it's still just a phenomenal song. I love the guitar on it. It's got such a darkness to it, like Tim was saying. And it's always been one of my favorite Van Halen, later Van Halen songs. And then my, where am I at here? Oh yeah, my David Lee Roth is from this one, the only one that's not on vinyl, from the DLR band. It's The Right Tool for the Job. I love this album. This is actually, this one and A Little Ain't Enough, my 2 favorite Van Halen records. I mean, my favorite David Lee Roth records. And
you remind me, I got to get that on cassette too. I don't have that on cassette.
Yeah.
I've had this since it was first released, and it's been played to death. It's all wore out. But this album is so underrated and so good. The guitar work has Terry Kilgore on it again. Also has John Five on a lot of songs. Is it Mike Hartman or Mark Hartman?
Yeah, Mike Hartman, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just all the
Ray,
songs.
Ray Luzier on drums, who went on to Korn.
Yeah, it's just a phenomenal album. And this also reminds me a lot of early Van Halen. A lot of the songs like Weekend with the Babysitter and all that stuff. It just has that sound. And Right Tool for the Job's the one I picked from this. I could have picked 5 or 10 different ones from it. I love it that much.
Why did he rebrand him? Sorry. Why did he rebrand himself the DLR band? Why didn't he just release that as a David Lee Roth solo record?
I filed it with David Lee Roth, so yeah, I don't know why. It was, I don't know. Dave being Dave, that's all I can figure.
I heard that album was a rebuttal to Van Halen 3. I don't know how true that is, but like,
I don't know, but you listen to this album and you listen to Van Halen 3, they both came out in 98. Which one sounds more like Van Halen?
Yeah. And I'll agree with Aaron. This is my second favorite David Lee Roth album. And I discovered this late. Aaron sent me this CD. And yeah, it's definitely my second favorite. I think it's a fantastic album.
All right, Tim.
Well, let's not break the flow. I'll say the David Lee Roth song first then, because this is an amazing album, and it's not on a major label, so it didn't get the attention that it should have. But this is classic sounding Van Halen. But I really don't understand why he called it DLR band, because it's not even a band, because there's a bunch of different guitar players on it, a bunch of different players, different bass players in some of the songs. But it is a great, great album. Dave still, like, vocally, like in the studio, they captured it pretty well. Like he's still, he was starting to get a little shaky, but still pretty good. I mean, this is 98, so. And yeah, I could have picked a lot of songs on here, but I'm going to go with What Was That? Just because I like saying it. But yeah, this is great. And people that, even if you don't like all the Dave solo stuff, if you like early Van Halen, there's nothing not to like about this. This is fantastic. I'm glad it's been mentioned, because it's good.
Well, and even from a marketing perspective, like if you saw that in the CD racks and you saw a DLR band, your mind wouldn't immediately go to, oh, that's David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just like browsing through, you're not going to think like, oh, DLR. I wonder if that's David Lee,
Yeah, and there's nothing on the back to say it. When I bought this, anyway, I bought this new. There was no hype sticker on it. I think I read about it in Metal Edge, but not everybody does, right? You got to be able to appeal. You need that shelf appeal, right?
And Betty Page, that's kind of,
Yeah,
and it's a dark photo too, right? It doesn't stand out, but.
And it's probably why it slipped under my radar, because at the time of this was released, I wasn't watching MTV. They probably weren't talking about it. Yeah.
So my Van Halen song is from my favorite Van Halen album from any lineup, from Off Carnal Knowledge. I just love this album, and I am going to go with the last song on side 1, Pleasure Dome. I think that's an epic. That's an epic song for Van Halen. Alex is amazing on it, and it's different, right? It's different lyrically. It's got a different feel. It's a pretty long song. Their song got a lot longer with Sammy anyway, but this song is like 7 minutes long. But I love Eddie's playing all the way through it, and yeah, that's mine. And Pleasure Dome is my pick. Although I got to say, anything on this album, this is just a quality album from Dave. It's got to check it out. It's probably only available used. It probably only got issued once, but if you see this somewhere and you're a Van Halen fan, don't trip on it. It's good.
Let's pray for a vinyl reissue.
yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So my next pick, the Van Halen pick, will be Finish What You Started. I know we've talked about it. Aaron mentioned it. Just an awesome song. It makes me feel so good. And it's a great song about blue balls, which is hilarious. And my David Lee Roth song is a song called Relentless. And what a heavy
that was almost
track.
my pick from that.
Oh my God, it's so awesome. Yeah, it is so awesome. I mean, like, if you have not heard this, if you're out there watching this and you haven't heard Relentless, you'll see why this is a Josh Costa pick. What's that?
That crazy riff with the harmonics.
Oh, yeah. it's insane. It's insanely awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna say the DLR song I like more. Once again, it's not by much. It's a completely different song, but Relentless, DLR band, fantastic track.
All right. My number three, what do we say? We're starting with Van Halen. I'm gonna go with Summer Nights off
Yes.
of 5150. Like, it's not summer until I hear that song. And the funny thing about this album is, I was still kind of super bummed that David Lee Roth was no longer in Van Halen. And I remember, like, I'm not buying the new Van Halen album. And mind you, my mom hated Van Halen when David Lee Roth was with Van Halen. And then I remember one day getting into the car and my mom pulls out the 5150 cassette. And I'm like, the fuck, mom? What are you doing with this? You said you hated Van Halen. And she's like, well, and it was like the total, Dreams and, all the kind of the soft, cozy, safe Sammy Hagar stuff on here. And so I kind of like begrudgingly listened to it. I'm like, all right, this is a great album. I kind of like had to admit, I had to wrap my head around the fact that it's a new band, but this music is actually really good. But Summer Nights, it closes out side one. Just a great party rocker. Love it. There's nothing to not like about it. It's kind of anthemic almost, but like I say, every time it's almost like it's not summer until I put that song on and, turn the volume up on it and rock out to it. So love that one. And then, and this is going to be like another sleeper pick. Like, probably, I know nobody else would ever have this in their top five. But at the same time, I love Damn Good off of this one. And the lyrics, I'm like, he's got to be talking about Van Halen. He's got to be talking about like his time with Van Halen. And I know it's sort of like the lyrics are couched more like a relationship, but like, come on, he's talking about his days with Van Halen on that song. But I love, I love when Dave kind of gets a little more mellow and where he's actually singing and rather than, trying to be the showman like he is. But Damn Good had to make my top five. And if I had to pick between the two, the Summer Nights, hands down. I love that song.
Yeah.
Great pick.
Yeah, two awesome songs.
All right, what are you on, number two?
Yeah, here we go.
All right.
My number two, Summer Nights. Love that song. My favorite song from this album. It almost has an DLR Van Halen feel to it in a way. I just always loved that song ever since it was released. And I actually liked this album when it first came out. I remember hearing Why Can't This Be Love on the radio, like before the album. And I said, oh, that's really cool. I like the that weird how it starts out sounding. So I've always liked this album a lot, but it's just, for me, it's just different. Like everyone's saying. But Summer Night, you can't deny how great that song is. It's just phenomenal. It almost feels like if they would have done more like that, that almost sounds like Sammy solo mixed with Van Halen that, had a little raw energy to it, even though it's a mellower song. I love it. And my David Lee Roth song is from...
Just to say, it makes you wonder how much of that music was written, before Dave left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and I would love, you've got AI technology now. I would love for somebody to take some of those Van Halen songs and put David Lee Roth on some of those tracks.
I could hear Dave singing "Get Good Enough."
Oh,
and
yeah.
Started and Summer Nights, maybe. Yeah, good enough.
Yeah, I would agree.
And
well, and I would also... Sorry, go ahead.
Sensible Shoes, my David Roth song. I love Sensible Shoes. It was almost my number one because I absolutely love that song, but it's not even my, I don't anymore, but I just love the lyrics and the feel. It almost has a Summer Nights feel to it. They're very similar, have that same summertime feeling to those songs. And it's, it's not one of the heaviest David Lee Roth songs, but it sounds like old Van Halen to me, and I just love it. Sensible Shoes, my number two, and it's my favorite of the two, barely over Summer Nights because I love Summer Nights.
that song's got so much attitude in it, like nice tight
Mhm.
fit, must be my size. Which leads me to actually the first time I heard the song I'm about to talk about, because it's funny, you know, A Little Ain't Enough is a really good album. Like it's a really, really good album, but it just didn't catch on. Like, and it stalled at gold, and you started seeing it in the cutout bins everywhere. And you know, Your Filthy Little Mouth was in the cutout bins within the year of it coming out. So Dave's solo career really took that nosedive for whatever reason. But so I was a little hesitant. Like I didn't hesitate, but I just didn't get around to getting A Little Ain't Enough until much later in '91. First thing that I got was, remember cassette singles?
Yeah.
I bought the cassette single to Sensible Shoes. And the song that was on the other side of Sensible Shoes is, I think, one of Dave's unsung great, great songs is Lady Luck.
Mhm.
Like that's a fantastic song. And what I like about it is that for the most part, Dave kind of plants his feet and sings it and plays it straight, so to speak. And the result is a fantastic melodic song. I mean, it's a great sounding album. It's Bob Rock. You know, he's got most of his old band, you know, because he's got the Bissonette brothers on bass and drums. He's still got Brett Tuggle on keyboards. It's just he's got Jason Becker on guitar. He also had Steve Hunter from Alice Cooper's band on guitar on this album. So it's a great musicianship. And I could have picked a lot of songs from it, but I've always had a soft spot for Lady Luck because I was like, wow, that's a really good, like it's not Dave delivering one-liners over music, which is what he started to do at one point, right? It's just a really well-written song. So that's my pick for David Lee Roth. And I'm going to stick in this same year, my favorite Van Halen album. And I got to set the story up. I didn't even know they had a new album coming out because the Van Halen camp, you just don't hear from them when they're not on tour or doing the press thing. I mean, it had been 3 years since OU812, so I guess, you know, deep down, you're like, well, they got to put a new album out sometime. I actually dug this out of a box in like a Kmart because they hadn't even put the cassettes on the rack when this first came out. So I bought the cassette because that's what I bought back then, and I put it in my little Walkman, and I heard, wow, 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 and I'm like, what? And the drums kick in, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're in for a ride now. Pound Cake. That's my favorite of the two, and it's all one of my all-time favorite Van Halen songs. I'm like, these guys are back, and to me, this album the songs just went from strength to strength, and yeah, I was not expecting. I'd already heard the Mr. Big because that had already come out with the drill, so I think that's why I knew what it was. I just wasn't expecting it, so
Yeah.
it was a really, really pleasant surprise to discover that album at the Kmart or wherever it was I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic song. And if we go over honorable mentions later, it's
mine.
yeah, it's definitely on there. I love that song. And I'm like you, I got that album when it first came out on cassette. My next picks for Van Halen, I am with Jeff and Aaron, Summer Nights. I got this album when it first came out. I was telling Aaron earlier that I was so obsessed with Van Halen, you know, and so I couldn't wait for this album to come out, and I was interested to see what they were going to be like. And I distinctly remember listening to it for the first time, and Summer Nights was my favorite track after hearing it for the first time. And at this point, there is one song I like better than this on this album, which you'll find out when I go my number one. But that's going to be my Van Halen pick. And then for David Lee Roth, it is going to be Ladies' Night in Buffalo, which I love that track. I think it's just fantastic. And I love the smoothness of it. Like you guys talked about David Lee Roth really singing and using his voice and painting this picture. And I remember listening to it as a kid, and you know, and he's saying it's like 3 a.m. and you know, the light turned low. It's like ladies' night in Buffalo. And I'm like, is that a compliment to the ladies in Buffalo, or is he insulting the ladies? Like, I had no clue if this was a positive or a negative. But I love both songs. I have to say, like Jeff, I'm going to give the slight edge to Summer Nights just because of the summer cookouts. You know, like if you guys were all at my house and we were having a cookout, and listening to that song, it would remind me of all the cookouts of old. But that being said, I love this song. I don't want to take anything away from Ladies Night in Buffalo. So those are my two picks.
I always figured that had to have been a Billy Sheehan lyric because he's from Buffalo.
Yeah. It must be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought up a good point when Dave really sings. That's why, and Jeff's talked about Diver Down. That's why I've always loved the song Secrets.
Oh yeah.
My favorite.
Great song.
Yeah, that's a great example of it. But yeah, I can't imagine a more miserable place on earth than Buffalo. But anyway, sorry if anybody's watching Buffalo. Yeah. All right. So my number 2 Van Halen pick, I'm gonna go to Tim's favorite album for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, Run Around. And I think one of the reasons why I love it so much, on the verses, Sammy sounds like Dave. Like if you turn the volume down and if you weren't aware, it was like, is that David Lee Roth or is that Sammy Hagar? And then when you get to the chorus, it's like, okay, it's very obvious it's Sammy, but I feel like on the verses at least, I could totally picture Dave singing those verses. I love it. It's got more melodic guitar lines from Eddie Van Halen. Just a great up-tempo song off FUCK. And then I'm going to go with Going Crazy off of,
nice.
this record, Eat 'Em and Smile. I mean, I always like, oh, this should have been the title track for the EP. Why wasn't this on the EP? Like so many songs, like Houses of the Holy or, so many other, Waiting for the Sun by the Doors. Yeah. So it's kind of like a part of a trivia question now, but yeah, it's just really cool. It's Dave having fun. I love it. And I probably heard it first on MTV, maybe, I don't know. But ever since I heard it, I'm like, that's my song. I freaking love that song.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah. All right, your number. All right, okay. Now between the two, if I had to pick, I don't think I picked a single David Lee Roth track over the Van Halen, but with that one, I'm gonna go with the David Lee Roth one.
Nice.
All right, our number 1 pick, number 1 favorite from both camps. Aaron.
All right. Now mine is probably one of the heaviest riffs that Eddie did after Dave left. It's a heavy When It's Love. No, it's not When It's Love, but it's originally it's from this, but it's also on this, and it's About Time. My favorite later Van Halen song, well, Van Halen with Hagar song is It's About Time. I've always loved that riff. So heavy. I just love that song so much. And, a lot of people don't know that song because it was only on this and then on this. But I think the 3 songs they did on this that were excellent. And It's About Time, my favorite Eddie Van Halen riff after Dave. I love the riff on that so much. And for David Lee Roth, back to my favorite. Drop in the Bucket, the last song on A Little Ain't Enough. Jason Becker is actually the main writer of that, and you can go on YouTube and see him actually playing all the guitar. It's just amazing, and the lyrics are so cool. I love Drop in the Bucket. So heavy and good, and just phenomenal musicianship. Jason Becker is so good on it, and David Lee Roth's attitude on it. It's Dave, totally Dave, and it's my favorite of any of the songs by either of them after the original Van Halen. Drop in the Bucket and A Little Ain't Enough.
Great one, dude.
Every time Dave goes over the top in a song, I just want to hear Ted Templeman like he is on Unchained.
Come on, Dave.
Come on, Dave. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Me? Okay. So I'm going to start with Dave. I'm going to go back to this album. If I had, which Aaron's probably got it, maybe you all do. I've never gotten around to getting the Spanish version of this. But if I did have it, I would say Timido. But it's Shy Boy. Originally by Talus, so it's a Billy Sheehan song, but Dave totally makes it his own.
Yeah.
I love the double bass, the crazy, Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai, but Dave, got to keep things moving. I've always really, really loved the way that they did that. So that's my pick for the Dave song. Some of you may be wondering why I haven't shown a certain format yet. Well, it's because I only have one thing to show. But so a little bit of background. Obviously, like, I was 10 in 1984. So I knew all the 1984 singles. So I knew Jump and Panama and Hot for Teacher. And I knew California Girls and Just a Gigolo because I had started listening to Top 40 radio. So I wasn't really buying albums at this point. But for me, the turning point came in like March or wherever it was, 1986, when I heard Why Can't This Be Love? And I heard that voice. And I'm thinking that guy could sing the Telephone Book and I'd like it. Like, holy cow. And the DJ came on at the end and said, oh, that's a new one from Van Halen. And I go, oh, that's Van Halen.
Nice.
There you go. Look at that.
From
That's fantastic.
one of the rarest. This one's weird because it's one of those ones they put together with two different colored
Yeah.
parts of the case. Yeah, this is a Columbia House version 5150, the newest. Although I got to be honest, there also exists an 8-track of this, which I would love to find, but it's even harder to find than this. But
Wow.
yeah, Why Can't This Be Love? I mean, it was the biggest hit of the Hagar era, and I mean, there was a lot of pressure on that band because Dave was such a personality, and Jeff mentioned, yeah, I mean, definitely it was a kinder, safer kind of Van Halen. I mean, Sammy was no angel, right? It's just that he had a better set of pipes and could deliver more melodic songs. But Dave was there was something so unpredictable about Dave, especially live, right? You didn't know if he was going to bother singing the verses or if he'd be like, I forgot words, like he did at the Oz Festival. But yeah, whatever. Yeah, I think Why Can't This Be Love is a fantastic, I'm going to call it what it is. It's a great pop song. There's a reason it went all the way to number 3 on the pop chart. I mean, that's a pretty rocking tune for early 1986. It was pretty mellow times on Top 40 radio. So it was nice to hear a little bit of guitar, right? So yeah, that had to be my pick because that started it all. That's what made them one of my favorite bands. And the one time I did get to see them in concert was on the Balance tour in '95. So what I remember fondly about that is the second verse. Michael Anthony would start to sing, I tell myself, hey, only fools rush in. And then Eddie takes over. For all I know, you've got to run to win. And I didn't know Eddie could sing like that. Like that was like the crowd went nuts when he took the mic. I think they did that every night, but it's the first time I'd seen it. So anyway, there you go. And obviously Why Can't This Be Love it's got to get the nod for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point, and you're absolutely right. Like I love that song, and it's an excellent pop song. And unfortunately, like the idea that rock and pop couldn't mix and all the gatekeeping that happened in the 80s is what killed rock music to a certain extent, because the gatekeeping just got worse and worse and worse. And that's why bands like Poison and Warrant careers got ended in like a flash. And it's like me and Aaron talk about this all the time. Our friends didn't stop listening to that music, but the industry stopped promoting it, right? And so because it was uncool to have rock that had a pop edge to it, so yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think, but that's a story for another day. All right, so
listen, I've talked about the early '90s many times.
Yeah. My number one for Van Halen is the song 5150. I absolutely love this song. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it should have been a huge hit for them. I can't imagine why it wasn't a hit. It's just such a great song. I absolutely love it. That's my number one Van Hagar pick. And then in terms of David Lee Roth, I apologize. It is going to be off this album, and it's going to be Big Trouble, another song that I think should have been a huge hit. I absolutely love both songs. I can't believe Jeff is making me do this and pick between these two because they're so neck and neck. I'm going to go with Big Trouble, but I'll probably hate myself in the morning for it. But yeah, I love them both. I'm just going to say that, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Big Trouble today.
Now, when you say, the song 5150, you guys are forgetting it's 5150. in quotations.
That is very
For some
true.
reason. It's a great song. It's a little complex for top 40 radio. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of movements in that song, but yeah, it is great. Would I be wrong to say that Eat 'Em and Smile and 5150 have gotten the most mentions of any albums? Seems like we've all held those up several times.
I've never held up Beat 'em and Smile for some reason, but I like it a lot.
Which is odd because that's the split year, right? Like that's the year that,
Yep.
fans had a choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love Smile, but my favorites have always been A Little Ain't Enough, and DLR, and then Your Filthy Little Mouth, Eat 'Em and Smile, Skyscraper. I like them all, but
Yeah.
I like the other ones a little better.
All right, Joshua, for my Van Halen pick, I am right with you. 5150 all day long and twice on Thursday. I love that riff because it's just, he just like pulls these riffs out of his ass, and it's so Eddie Van Halen. It's the perfect intro to a song. I absolutely, because it starts with that didn't, and then it goes in, and then it's like a totally different song. I love the bridge. Everything about that song is perfect. One of my favorite. It is in my top 10 Van Halen songs of all time. I absolutely love that. Not sure what it has to do with the title, why it's the title track, other than they probably just couldn't come up with a title for the song. I do not care. I absolutely love that one. And then for my David Lee Roth, and this is another very oddball one, I will admit. However, the reason I like this so much, and I've made this point before, because I've thought to myself many times, like, what sets Van Halen apart from other bands that were doing roughly the same thing? The hard rock, the heavy metal, the guitar rock during the same period that Van Halen was. And it was because Van Halen could swing. Every beat that they had, it was like a swing beat. And I don't know if that was because their dad used to be in a swing band. He was a jazz musician, but that's what sets them apart. And so my pick is going to be off of this album. Or is it? Wait a minute. Hold on. It might be off. I picked the wrong one. Okay, it's off Eat 'Em and Smile, Elephant Gun. It's got that Van Halen swing beat to it. It's like a lost Van Halen song. If you had played this for me and I wasn't familiar with this album, I would have thought, oh, is that a Van Halen outtake? It just sounds very much, it swings, and that's what I love about Van Halen. That's why it reminds me so much about Van Halen. But yeah, I love that one. I know it's an odd number one pick, but I mean, that's why I like it, because it reminds me a lot of my favorite thing about Van Halen was just that beat.
Oh yeah.
I love that song.
Van Halen can be as heavy as anybody, but there's still that, like Hot for Teacher, right? It's got that.
Yeah, and no other band had that before or since. No other band has been able to replicate that or even tried to. But if I had to pick between the two, I mean, 5150, it's just, to me, it's a perfect song. I got to go with 5150 for that one. So do you want to do honorable mentions? I don't know if anybody even compiled. I know, Aaron, you probably got about 40 in your list.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah. Well,
I only chose 5 of each. Aaron, you want me to go?
I can throw a couple out.
All right, who wants to go first? Aaron, you want to go first?
Well, I think that I love Skyscraper because I listened to it so much that summer. So I'm going to go with Hot Dog and a Shake.
Yep, my favorite song.
Like that one. And for Van Halen, try to pick something. Okay, I'm going to go back to 0812, but I'm going to go with AFU, Naturally Wired.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Nice.
For me, I have a couple different ones. And first off, Tim, I do have the Spanish version of this. If I ever find it with a hype, I will send you my regular edition. Because I'm
awesome.
always, you may not know this about me, but I'm always on the hunt for hype stickers. All right, so from David Lee Roth Band, another one from this album, the DLR Band, is a song called Blacklight. I really love that song. There's a song that was released 2 years ago. It was only released on YouTube, and it's called Nothing Could Have Stopped Us Back Then Anyway. And it's a song about Van Halen. And I
Yeah.
love that song. That could have easily made my top 5. I at least once a week I listen to that song by David Lee Roth. Off this song, off this album, Knuckle Bones. I do
Oh, yeah.
wonder if they had less keyboard on this album, if I'd listened to it more, but I still love it. And then on this album, I would say my favorite song is Hammerhead Shark. So those are my DLR songs. And then for Van Halen on Balance, the song Feelin'. I love that song Feelin'. It's so good. I could say this whole album, but my 3 favorites on this are Top of the World, Run Around, and Pound Cake. Love those 3 songs. And then lastly, my last one, I'll let Aaron go because I'm sure Aaron's got an awesome list, is going to be the song off the Twister soundtrack, Human Beings. I love the riff of that song. Great riff, heavy song. And I definitely agree with you, Aaron, about the tracks that they made for that greatest hits. So good. I'm glad that we finally have it on vinyl. So, all right, those are my honorable mentions.
You want to go first, Jeff, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll do it because I only have one of each. Now, honestly, this might have made my number 2 or number 1 Van Halen song for the Van Hagar era, except for the vocals on it. And I know you guys know which song I'm talking. Tim may not, but I know Aaron and Josh know what song I'm talking about. I love the instrumental back. Yes, I love the instrumental backing on this track, and it's When It's Love. It's so like it would have fit perfectly on 5150. I love all the elements to it, except that goddamn chorus where Sammy Hagar. Yeah, I mean it's like nails on a chalkboard. I cannot take it. If not for Sammy's vocal on that song, I would love it because I love everything about it. You know, I love the keyboard work on it, just the guitar, everything about it, except for that vocal. So I'm gonna slot it at number 6 just because it is a great song.
Nice.
I just can't take the vocal on it. And
I've been driving and hurt myself trying to sing.
Yeah, it's just you know, I don't mind his vocal on the verses, but when he gets to that chorus, it's just a bridge too far for me, and I can't go there. So anyway, and then Yankee, I feel bad. I left Yankee Rose off here. Yankee Rose is great. It's the one, if I could, you know, take anyone back, it would be to replace it with Yankee Rose. So those are going to be my 2 honorable mentions.
Yeah, I think Yankee Rose is a masterpiece. I really do. We might have heard it too much, maybe, but it's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
They must have known when they were in the studio doing that. They must have known, like, okay, we got something here. Like this is going to be all right.
Yeah, and the album came out July 7th. That in the song, he's like fire cracking like the 4th of July. It takes me right back to that time period. You know, he was smart.
Well, and Dave had to show, like, okay, I'm not going to be doing all these, you know, kind of corny, cheesy songs like we're on the EP. Like, he had to come out swinging. And like Yankee Rose was the perfect lead-off single and the lead-off track just to show, like, yeah, I can still rock. I haven't lost my mind. I haven't gone totally show business and sold out. And so I think Yankee Rose delivered the goods. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people were like, what is making the wow?
Yeah, it's kind of like his version of Hello, Baby.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Love it.
My number 6 for the Van Halen ones was actually Black and Blue.
Nice.
Yep. My number 7 was Humans Being. Love that song.
Awesome.
Number 8 was Get Up. Love that one.
Great one.
Oh man. And then my number 9 was Pound Cake. And my number 10, the song that Jeff hates, which I absolutely love. And I don't know why I love this song so much. A lot of people think it's their worst song. I love the song Inside so much. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. always loved Inside. So that was my Van Halen ones. And Jeff's gonna kill me for that because I know how much he loves Inside.
No, I'm not going to kill
JC
you
Penny,
for it,
man,
but
JC Penny.
I just think, to me, it's amusing that of all the Van Hagar songs, like that still fits into your time. A lot of people, because that's like Happy Trails for me on Diver Down. It's kind of like just a wisecracking. Okay, they're just being goofball. They just had some fun in the studio. It's not a serious track, but for Aaron, it's his freaking number 10. Top 10 Van Halen. You got Inside, and he's not even messing with us.
Oh, and you know what it was? I realized that today when I was listening to it. It kind of reminds me of Saturday Afternoon in the Park from Fair Warning. And that's why, and I love that so much. And it kind of has that same feel to it. Maybe that's why I like it so much.
No, you're totally right. I never made that connection before, but you're absolutely right.
And Fair Warning is my favorite album. And it's just, I've always loved it. It kind of has a feel. I mean, it's not the same thing. It has that feel to me. So for the David Lee Roth stuff, I actually had this many.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I love Ladies Night in Buffalo was my number 6. That's my favorite Freedom Smile. I'm glad someone picked that. I got Hammerhead Shark was right after that. Then Relentless. Then I had She's My Machine, the single from Your Filthy Little Mouth. Love that song. Big Trouble was my number 10. And I want to at least do my number 11, which is a very underrated song called Sunburn from Your Filthy Little Mouth. It's a very mellow song. It just sticks in your head. Oh my God, I love Sunburn. It's probably my favorite of his slower songs that he's ever done. I love that. And, and I'll just hold this up so people can see what the rest of them were if they want to pause it. But those were my top 30. And I really could have done a top 50 easily without even thinking twice. And I could have for the Van Halen too, but I mean, I got all kinds of good stuff. There's a ton from this album on there and from all of them. My only ones that made it from Skyscraper, though, my first one was Hot Dog and a Shake at 14. And I also had Knucklebone. Yeah, Knucklebone. I actually do like Stand Up a lot, and I like the song Skyscraper a lot. I like it all. Just like Paradise. They're all good. Damn good. These are good times. But I like for his smaller ones, I like Sunburn, and then the song from A Little Ain't Enough, Tell the Truth. That song I love so much.
Black Sand is a good one too.
Yeah, Black Sand. That's on here too.
A great acoustic guitar playing in that. That's Terry Kilgore.
Yeah,
that one. Yeah,
I think I have Black Sand. It should be on here. When I did my Lost Classes of the '90s, that's one of the ones I actually put on there. I put 3 songs, and Black Sand was one of them. I love Black Sand. Slam Dunk, Weekend with the Babysitter, King of the Hill.
Yeah. And that song Sunburn is awesome. It's like the second to the last track, right?
Yeah. And then they did the urban mix of You're Breathing It after that.
Yeah. I would say that. Yeah, I mean, Land's Edge is the only song I like probably better than Sunburn on that album. It's but they're both classic. I'm surprised we didn't see a lot of Skyscraper today, but I think it's hard to live up to Eat 'Em and Smile for a lot of people.
My 30 was from this. Don't Piss Me Off.
Oh yeah.
Only on that. I like that one too a lot. It's good. So I like it all.
Yeah, no, well, you give Aaron an inch, he takes a mile. Probably list. So
yeah, but as fans I really love, I will just keep going and going. So
yeah, well, it's really hard, but yeah, I don't know. Like
albums, and that was gonna be hard doing a top 5. I thought we were gonna do a top 5 albums, and so for songs, it's a lot harder for me because there's hundreds instead of a dozen or so. Yeah. It's hundreds of songs, and I like all of them. So.
Well, this question has been asked a million times. Do you like 5150 or Eat 'Em and Smile better?
Eat 'Em and Smile. But that's my 4th favorite David Lee Roth album. Solo.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it sounds a little more like a Van Halen album, and I don't know if that's just because of the vocals or whatever, but
it's Ted Templeman, right?
Yeah.
To do with it.
To me, these two are like Van Halen albums more than Eat 'Em and Smile even. But all 3 of those, and then Skyscraper almost has a 5150 quality to it. In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The there's a lot more keyboard. Like even with the song like Knucklebones, you can still hear keyboard throughout the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but they're all great. So
What would you pick, Josh?
ooh, that's a tough question. Most of my life I've lived with both those albums, so it's really, really hard. I would probably tell you that I listen to the DLR, Eat 'em and Smile more now than I do 5150, but I'd probably go with 5150 just because those songs like Summer Nights and Dreams and
Why can't
yeah,
this be?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a classic album, you know.
It's
Yeah,
the drum.
what's that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the older I get, the more the David Lee Roth era resonates with me. You know, as a kid, I just love both eras, you know, but I can see as an adult now the differences between the two bands, but I love them equally. But the David Lee Roth solo stuff is criminally underrated. It really is. And like Tim had said, and Tim illustrated perfectly, like they were dollar a bin records. Like he had kind of, and I think he was hurt by like he was still making like the Little Late Enough video was still very like campy
The
and
pink,
cartoonish.
yeah.
And MTV had kind of people were doing these serious videos then, you know what I mean? And so it probably hurt him that way. And then Jason Becker obviously tragically got ill, and that didn't help either. But I think that his solo stuff holds up. And like you guys said, this DLR band, man, they need to re-release this, and the vinyl community will pimp the shit out of this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it'll be a massive hit. Yeah. Yeah.
And this will be on my next Tipsy Tuesday, just to let everyone know. This is what I'm going to play on the next one.
All right.
Record. I love it.
So, guys, we talked about this before we started recording, but just Aaron wasn't here. So David Lee Roth came out and he bashed Wolfgang Van Halen. To me, the start where he was interviewing Jesus, if anyone hasn't heard it, go listen to it. David Lee Roth starts the podcast by interviewing Jesus, and Jesus is saying, well, I would still be here if it wasn't for my dad. It doesn't matter that my dad's God, I'd still be here. And it's obvious that he was making an analogy to Wolfie saying, well, I would still be here even if my dad wasn't God. My dad wasn't Eddie Van Halen. And I feel like that was David Lee Roth's, to me, that was the thing that he really did to piss off Wolfie, because Wolfie supposedly has said many times in interviews, well, I would still, have been in Van Halen if it was for my dad. I still would have a record deal if it wasn't for my dad. But I'd like to get everybody's opinion on, do you think David Lee Roth is just putting everybody on blast? Because the last few weeks he's put Valerie Bertinelli on blast. He put Eddie on blast, saying that Eddie hated his brother. He put Sammy on blast, which some people think is warranted. But what are your thoughts? Is David Lee Roth crazy, or is he just trying to get press?
I don't think he's well. And I don't understand where all this anger is coming from. Like, it is for somebody that was supposed to be this great front man, great entertainer. He's an angry old man now. And it's not fair to Wolfgang. It's not fair to Valerie. Now, Sammy invites it because any opportunity he gets, he talks about Dave, but it's never really mean spirited. But yeah, Dave, I just don't get it. I wish he would actually put those songs together on an album and put it out, and stop with the nonsense, like just videos of him dancing to some other artist's song that he'll post. Like, strange guy.
Yeah, who's dancing to INXS the other day.
Yeah, and no context.
Yeah,
like we're all supposed to just get it, and I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, it's
Jeff, what
just
are your
unnecessary. Like, what did Wolfgang Van Halen ever do to him? And I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but it just seems like so unnecessary.
Yeah.
He lost his dad. He's not, there's no Van Halen for all intents and purposes anymore. Like, what does Dave get out of throwing shade at Wolfgang Van Halen, who's trying to, keep himself a viable, musician with a Mammoth project that he's got going out? I mean, there's just no reason for it. What did Wolfgang Van Halen ever do? To my knowledge, he's never said anything negative about David Lee Roth unless I just haven't been aware of it. But
Like, yeah, if there's anybody that you'd think might have had a grudge against Wolfgang, would be Mike Anthony, because Wolfgang, just by being Eddie's son growing up, getting old enough to be on stage, put Mike out of a job. But you've seen pictures of them in recent years, which was awesome to see.
Right.
But Dave is not like anybody else that I can think of, because he's a unique, like, I think he's a very intelligent man, but it's like reading his book, like his Crazy from the Heat book. You've got to really, because he's all over the place with what he talks about. So you've really got to try and strap in and follow along. But now it's that, but it's laced with all of this anger and bitterness. And I just don't understand. I mean, Dave sold millions and millions of albums, and his songs are played daily on classic rock radio. What has he got to be angry about? But for some reason, and I don't know why at this point he's lashing out. I guarantee you he wouldn't be lashing out at Wolfgang like that if Eddie was still alive, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, something must have transpired. And I can imagine, we've said this before in videos, that the Van Halen brothers must have been difficult to deal with. There's no doubt about it.
I think the whole organization was hugely dysfunctional.
So yeah, I don't think David Lee Roth is completely to blame. I think everybody has a part to play. But I do think that, like, Different Kind of Truth, Wolfgang Van Halen wants to put that back out, and David Lee Roth is stopping it. And I think that, and he's saying David Lee Roth doesn't like the album. My guess is David Lee Roth is probably just being like, well, you made my life difficult, now I'm going to make your life difficult. The one thing I will say, though, is that Van Halen, I heard this, financially, we're all not doing well. Like, record sales had slowed down. David Lee Roth wasn't financially making a ton of money. Eddie wasn't. That reunion tour made them all millions and millions of dollars. So they set their families up for life with that reunion tour. So you would think they all could have gone off and gone gracefully. You know what I mean?
Yeah, instead it's this forever this dysfunction. And I happen to really like A Different Kind of Truth, and it should be back out there. It should have been on Warner Brothers to begin with. That's Dave that insisted it came out at Interscope. That's Dave that broke that cycle, because even the Tokyo Dome came out on Warner. If it was on Warner, it would still be available. It would be on Spotify. It would be on all these digital platforms. But no, Dave had to be Dave, and or so it seems.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron, you haven't said anything. Do you have any thoughts on this whole debacle?
I have my own thoughts, but I don't really know what's going on with these people. Without actually being in, knowing exactly what happened, it's just all hearsay to me. So I don't like to talk about it. But I
guess my attitude there is, we don't know what's going on, but I also think there's such a thing as taking the high road, and I don't know.
A lot of these old bands are doing it. Van Halen, Kiss, a few others.
Yes.
They're all kind of,
I mean, I don't know who's worse right now, David Lee Roth or Ace Frehley.
Oh,
I don't even want to. I'm a huge fan. I don't even want to buy Ace's new album. I'm so done with his stupid statements he keeps saying. My fans are smarter than Kiss fans. Your fans are Kiss fans.
They are Kiss fans.
Yeah.
The person that just likes Ace Frehley and Frehley's comment that doesn't like Kiss, that person does not exist.
Yeah. Or
Ace.
Ace owes hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, and that's why he can't renew his passport. And it's like, how does this man not, like, how many times does he file bankruptcy? I mean, I love Ace. Don't get me wrong.
I know.
I don't want to talk trash about him. Kiss is one of my favorites. Ace is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just sad that crazy.
Yeah. The only thing about Ace that Ace has going for him is that he will never be the craziest guitar player that was ever in Kiss. Vinny's got that locked down. Yeah. Vinny's got that locked down. So
I thought you were going to go with
$1,000 to join the website. Like, come on.
I feel bad for Bruce. I mean, I shouldn't feel bad for him. He's probably well off, but Bruce handled it like a champ. when he got
That's why Bruce has
let
always
go.
been welcomed by Gene and Paul. He's been able to
Yeah.
play with Ace. Like he's you know
They-
he's Switzerland. He's neutral, right?
Yeah. And I'm in Aaron's camp. Me and Aaron, we both love 80s Kiss. I mean, we love 70s Kiss too. Don't get it
Yep.
twisted. But like we love 80s Kiss. And so Bruce Kulick is to me like, you know, he was a guitar god. Like,
He's the
yeah.
one that-
Bruce is one of those guys that could pick up a hairbrush and make it sound good. Like all
Yeah.
anyone has to do is watch the Unplugged.
one of the most underrated guitarists in music. Bruce
Oh, yeah.
Kulick.
Totally.
He doesn't have personality, so he doesn't get the he doesn't make a spectacle of himself. But yeah, he's a great guitar player. Can play a variety of styles, and yeah, I mean, to me, I got into Kiss when Alive 3 came out. To give you an idea.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that lineup to me, like that lineup could play anything.
Yeah, for me, I got into 70s Kiss because I would steal my dad's records. And he had Kiss Alive. And that's how I got into Kiss. But I was definitely into 80s Kiss. And you know, and I even love the albums that people hate. Like I love Crazy Nights and Hot in the Shade. And you know, I have no hatred towards any of those albums. I love them all. You know,
Hot in the Shade-
Not to pimp my own show, but if anybody's watched one of our recent episodes, we did our 10 least favored Kiss songs, and that's got a lot of interesting responses. But it's all over the place as far as the albums.
yeah. What were you gonna say,
Yeah.
Aaron?
I said Hot in the Shade's one of my favorite Kiss records. And Asylum. Oh man, Look It Up and Animal. I love all those so much.
It's so good.
Yeah, no, always. Well, thanks guys for joining our Van Halen discussion. We kind of veered off into Kiss, but maybe next time we'll do a Kiss video. That would be a fun
veer
one.
off
We'll figure out some topics.
You're off in the Van Halen, yeah.
Yeah, the makeup versus the non-makeup era or whatever, you know. But
Who's the
yeah,
craziest
so
member of Kiss?
fun
Oh, gee.
episode. Check out Josh's channel, Flipside Vinyl Community. Check out Tim's channel, Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Check out Aaron's channel, Aaron Mutha Alamere. And hopefully we can do this again. I'd love to have Tim be a part of our group going forward if he's up for it. But we can pick a different topic, and we'll see you all around next week.